So Jimmy Haslam finally did it. The Cleveland Browns finally did it. This has been coming for a long time. I mean, we've been having talks like this about Kevin Stefanski for I don't know how many years now, but we're finally here. Kevin Stefanski has been fired as the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, and you know, it's something that though we've been, this shouldn't come as a shock as anybody that this has happened today, but the real question is, where do we go from here? What's next? Who do we fill? How did we get here? There's so many questions. And I'm going to break it down for all y'all today. And I just want to start by first off, because this is my first video. It's a little out of the blue, but I'm jumping right into it. Starting off my YouTube channel, something I've been wanting to do for a minute. Been doing a lot of work over at Big Play Sports Network, talking on live on the Big Factor Mondays through Fridays. But it's time for me to start doing a little bit of my own content now. So we'll be on the lookout for me, more Cleveland Browns talk, some Cleveland Cavaliers talk, NBA, NFL. It's mainly what I watch. So I'll be trying to pump out some content on that. Hopefully I can start building this career, man. Hopefully this is the start of a nice long journey for me. But I mean, let's dive into it with Kevin Stefanski, because if you're a Browns fan, right, this is a super, what's the word? There's a little bit of what I would call Stockholm syndrome for a lot of Browns fans, right? Because Kevin Stefanski is the best coach I have seen in my entire lifetime. I'm 24 years old. I've been watching the football my entire life. I've been a Browns fan ever since I was born. It's hard to justify that we are now at this point, and to a point where I felt like a lot of people were in agreement, to the point where we're firing the only coach that I've seen have, I believe, multiple 10-plus win seasons, and has taken us to the playoffs twice, and has won a playoff game. Granted, he wasn't there. He wasn't the actual coach for that game. But regardless, you can't take away the success that has been those seasons and those teams. And, that image that was in most of our heads was that this guy could make it work with whoever. But see, that's been the whole point, is that over these past couple of years, that hasn't really been the case with Kevin Stefanski. I think these last 2 years have been rough. But you got to give him credit again. Got to give him credit. Last 2 wins shows that he never lost that locker room, right? These last 2 games against Cincinnati Bengals and the Pittsburgh Steelers, you've seen the energy on the field. You've seen the team taking penalties, just out there having fun. And that's not something that a team that has 4 wins at the end of the season usually does, who's, trying to go for draft stock, and they're trying to do that. So you got to give Kevin his flowers there. But how did we get here, right? Like, how did we get to the point where Kevin is now just on his way out of the door? There's nothing they could do about it. It starts in different places for many. I know what I think the last straw was, and I'm sure many people have understood that with how this year played out. But I could point to, I'd say two things in my mind right now. And one, and it is speculation for both because we don't know, and I'm sure one day this will all come out because that's just the nature of how things work for the Cleveland Browns. But one, when Alex Van Pelt got fired the year after, I believe that was when we went to the playoffs with Joe Flacco. We fired Alex Van Pelt, our OC. Something, a move at the time that, a lot of us shook off, because in comes Ken Dorsey the next year. And we're like, oh, he's going to bring this whole offense and he's going to unlock Deshaun Watson and we're going to finally get our money's worth on that. Well, we saw how that worked out. And that's just a move I don't think Kevin necessarily agreed with. I think that's something that was forced on him a little bit. And I think you saw that later in the year when he kind of started to get sick of it in that first 3-win season. He was just like, throws his hands up. He says, I'm going to get rid of it. You guys could watch Ken Dorsey call the plays and see what it is. And I think that's what we saw. That's a little bit of that frustration from Kevin. Another thing, when Joe Flacco was traded this season and he gets up in front of the media and he says, this game is a little bit of a shock to me. And honestly, I mean, that's something we had never heard from Kevin before. Usually the whole thing we heard was how him and Andrew Berry, lockstep, one and the same, twin. That's my twin and them. Like, they're just, everything they agree on it. They had been going back and forth, working together the whole way. And that's the first time we kind of saw something like that happen, to where that raised some more eyebrows. Now, if you want to go all the way back, some people could point to what there's a lot of opinions on this, but the whole Baker Mayfield situation, what led to Deshaun Watson, who was the driving force between that. A lot of people speculate that Kevin probably not all the way on board with going and getting Deshaun Watson, but from what I recall, I don't know if Kevin was all the way in on Baker, because he didn't draft that guy either. And there was that whole saga with, we have to keep playing the shoulder injury. We got to see what we got. ultimately Baker playing his way out of town and a whole lot of drama. There's been a lot of drama around Kevin Stefanski this whole time in Cleveland, but for those who may not cover the Browns closely or are new to it because of, Shador Sanders and everything that's happened this year, that is very normal. That's something that goes on all the time around here. It's not a shocker, but as I get to it, I think the last straw was Kevin Stefanski, who, again, speculation, we believe was the driving force in drafting Dillon Gabriel. And that was the final straw because you got out there and what everyone thought, Dillon Gabriel just wasn't a NFL quality starter. He wasted X amount of games in the middle of the season playing him. And that's ultimately something that's going to come back that came back to haunt Kevin Stefanski. You can't even say that's going to come back. It finally did. And it was the thing. He died on that hill. He finally got to get his guy at quarterback, and it didn't work out. And a guy that they took a shot on late in the draft proved to have much more talent. Now, granted, Shador Sanders, that's a whole conversation. I'll have plenty of videos on that going forward and talking about that. But it was clear he was better than Dillon Gabriel. It was clear he probably should have been playing much sooner. It was clear he shouldn't have been throwing to trash cans and buckets and all that stuff that we were seeing in the offseason going on with Shador. But, I digress. But that whole situation, the handling of that, if he was one of the people that wanted to bring in Kenny Pickett just to trade him away before the season even started, and not to mention how Kevin was supposed to be this guy that solved our offense, but our offense has been terrible for 2 years now. It's been terrible for 2 years now, and things haven't been improving. And one of the things you used to love about Kevin was it seemed it was interchangeable. Things go in and out. I remember going to a game, and I think it was Case Keenum and Dearness Johnson in that backfield, and everything looked just the same. We won the game easily. I believe we were playing the Denver Broncos, and things were going off. I was like, man, you can put anyone in back here. We got the O-line, we got the scheme, and more talk about the roster construction, what the team looks like, and all that. Like, I got plenty of yap to talk about, and where the O-line's at now versus where it was, and how we got here in the receiver room. But today, since this is the day Kevin Stefanski got fired, I would just like to sit down, talk about my head coaching candidates for the Browns, who I would like to see coming up and being our next head coach. Just to start, I'm going to throw the names out there who I would say are like my wild cards. I don't have them in my top three, but I would say if I was running out like a top 5, top 6, this would be it. I'll start with both the coordinators in LA. The McVay coaching tree, it speaks for itself. It's done wonders for many people. Well, I guess I can't say wonders for many people yet, but it's a safe bet. I think the McVay coaching tree will one day turn into what we talked about, the Belichick coaching tree. So first off, Chris Shula, he's been amazing out there in LA as the defensive coordinator. He's helped rebuild that defense, make it a respectable and at times dominant unit out there with Jared Verse and all those guys. Chris Shula, he's brought that aggression back, and ever since Aaron Donald, that's something that's been missing out there in LA since their Super Bowl run. They've needed it. He's been key, instrumental in bringing that back. Another thing for those, if you're around here, Cleveland, he used to be a DC at John Carroll, so he's got those ties. I don't believe he's from here or was born in Ohio, but he spent time here. So he knows a little bit of what that's about, and he's another aggressive coach. And that's one thing you don't want to see go away is Jim Schwartz's aggression and how he plays defense and that attitude we have. You want to keep that with the next head coach. Speaking of that, Jim Schwartz, I would put him in the honorable mention. He's got to be a candidate. He has to be, because now we've had Myles Garrett, and I just saw Denzel Ward about 20 minutes ago before I started recording this video come out and say he would endorse Jim Schwartz as the next head coach of the Browns. And if the defense is saying, and the defense is the whole reason that I think this team still has a window of success in the next couple of years, if they could ever figure out what's going on with the offense, if they're saying they want Jim Schwartz around, you should do everything in your power to make sure you could either keep him or promote him. And then finally, I would say, from my last honorable mention, Mike LaFleur. Brother of Matt LaFleur, head coach of the Green Bay Packers, has spent time in both the McVay and Shanahan tree, the OC for the Rams. I get it. The hotshot OC thing, it hasn't been working out as great as it has in the past as of late. I get it. I completely understand. However, this is too tantalizing. You get a guy that spent time with the two best minds in football right now, the two best offensive minds in football, spent time learning under them, a young guy, someone who's worked with a vast bunch of quarterbacks. He's been through his 9 lives in the NFL. I remember I'm pretty sure he was involved when Zach Wilson was on the Jets. He then moves on. He does some work with the 49ers, now with the Rams. He's been a part of some great offenses, some great schemes. I understand he's for head coach very young and has never had the head coach experience before. Now, Jim Schwartz has a one-up on these two guys that he's been a head coach before. But if I'm taking a shot, there's going to be one other name on my list that I would take a shot on. But I would take a shot on Mike LaFleur. It would be very risky, but this would be our Kevin O'Connell type find where we take a shot on the coordinator from a good tree and we go in, we hand him the keys, and it would be this could be the move that ends up with Andrew Berry out of his job if that was the move. But I'd have him in at least an interview, like come in and see what he has to say, see what he thinks about the situation. But I'm gonna get to my top three here. To start off, number 3, I have Clint Kubiak. Now, Clint Kubiak, offensive coordinator in Seattle right now. If you've watched any Seattle Seahawks football so far this year, you've seen that Sam Darnold has looked very good. At times, he's been Sam Darnold, but again, you're seeing Sam Darnold versus what he was a couple years ago. Part credit to Kevin O'Connell, part credit to Clint Kubiak this year. What's very enticing to me about Clint Kubiak is how the Seahawks run the ball so much. And they're not necessarily good at it, but they just run the ball so much, and they set up the pass so effectively after that. You could even say Clint has some similarities to Kevin in a way. You would hope he would come in and have more success. But Clint's been great in 12 personnel, scheming up great things with an inefficient run game. The Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet in the backfield. Now, if you could upgrade the O-line here in the offseason, which there will be plenty of talk about, signings, drafts, and what we could do. But there's some chips, and if you could get healthy, I would want to see, at a minimum, 2 of the people on the line stay. I would want to see either Teller and Conklin, Teller, Jenkins, some combination of that stay. Maybe Whippler, but I think he just got hurt, so that's not going to look good for him. I don't know what the specific injury is, but he got carted off, I think, against the Bengals, if I'm not mistaken. So that's not a good look for him going into next season. But with an improved O-line, Quinshon Judkins, who should be good for camp, a Dylan Sampson, who's a versatile back, if you could have all that into the running game with a guy who loves using 12 personnel, who's been using, and AJ Barner and Elijah Arroyo are both great players. I think Harold Fannin and David Njoku are 2 better tight ends. You bring that guy here, you use a top pick on a receiver. Maybe I'm assuming they probably bring in a veteran as competition in camp if there's a new quarterback, a new coach. You put all that together, there's a shot. You got a chance at something. You sign a guy, maybe you try to make a trade for Marvin Harrison. You throw a lot of money at George Pickens, maybe see what that is. You bring in 2 receivers. You lean into your 2 tight ends, and you got 2 legitimate threats outside the receiver. Could be an offense that Clint Kubiak could cook with. So it's something I would like to see. I think he should be on their radar, but these other 2 guys are my top 2 candidates. At number 2, I got Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy, the CEO coach that we've talked about. You know how they talk about, if you watch Ohio State football, they talk about Ryan Day, CEO of the program, even though he stepped in and was doing a little more play calling, but whole different thing with Hartline going out. You're looking at McCarthy. He's a guy who's been to the top of the mountain. It's that simple. You want a guy that could come in, be the leader, who's been to the top of the mountain, has the pedigree, and can show you how to get somewhere that you have never been because he's been there before. The other thing that I think about McCarthy that is intriguing is that he's been in Dallas. And by that I mean he knows how to deal with an owner that likes to be a part of the whole shebang. He's been with an owner that likes to meddle a little bit, likes to get in the weeds, likes to probably have a little bit more to say than he should because, the owners most of the times don't know football. I'd say Jimmy Haslam is like a junior Jerry Jones. Mike McCarthy's dealt with Jerry Jones. Hopefully Jimmy Haslam would just be like an easy Saturday lunch for him. Nothing too crazy. Just something he's already dealt with and could just lean back in, knows how to maneuver through that and still be in charge, be the guy driving behind the football decisions, and hopefully get us to the Super Bowl that I don't know if I'll ever see. I'm 24. Hopefully one day I'm seeing a Super Bowl. So I got Mike McCarthy at 2. At number 1, my top candidate, I got Brian Flores. I think that's been a very popular thing for people saying. There would be some adjustments for the team. Brian Flores comes in, Jim Schwartz is probably out. Might be something not a lot of players like. But sometimes, what the players always want isn't always the case. Like, I've had some coaches I loved in my life, but that doesn't mean they were always pushing me to be better. Like, sometimes certain players, certain teams need that guy that's going to come in, shake it up a little bit, and be a little more aggressive, rude, whatever. They might come off as abrasive or anything. I read a quote the other day from Flores, and this was him talking about his time in Miami and his relationship with Tua. He said, "I think part of coaching is correcting," Flores says. "I'm always going to correct. I'm always going to have a high standard. I think, look, I've done a lot of reflecting on the situation and communication. I think there are things I could do better for sure, and I've grown in that way, and I've tried to apply the things that I could do better and the things that I've learned over the last 2-3 years." I read that quote as him acknowledging the tumultuous relationship he had with Tua Tagovailoa and looking to improve with his next shot at a head coach. Brian Flores is, I think, maybe one of the most he's a psychopath with how he blitzes teams. And he's like one of the most aggressive guys I've seen. But I think he's maybe like a top 5-10 defensive mind in football right now on the planet today. I would love to see him come in. I think it would be the key. He's my number one hire because it's going to bring something that everyone who's been watching Browns football for the last 6 years hasn't seen from Kevin Stefanski, and it's that fire. It's that getting up in people's faces. I don't think you'll have to see if we lose a game. He goes up to the podium. He's like, well, yep, got to be better. Not really saying anything. I think it would just be a complete breath of fresh air, one, for how it just is something completely different. But I think he really brings in just a completely different juice that Kevin doesn't. And I think this team could probably use that. And I'm sure he could come up with some crazy ways to use Myles Garrett, especially with how Flores likes to bring extra guys and get exotic. How much attention Myles Garrett brings. I think he could cook up some very, 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 very crazy things for this defense. Now, of course, there's the whole thing with the lawsuit with the league, all the ongoing things, and in the talks of him being blackballed from being a coach ever again. I'll go ahead and say this right now. I think if there's ever a place where the guy that's blackballed could get another opportunity is Cleveland. You've seen it already. I don't need to get into it. If Jimmy Haslam has done what he's done in the past, I think he could definitely hire Brian Flores. So it'll be interesting to see. We're going to be on it. I'm going to be on it. We're going to be looking, doing all the deep searches in the weeds, looking up with the reports, seeing what's new, seeing what it's going to look like for us. But I'm excited to keep talking about the Browns and Cleveland sports in general, and then hopefully just NFL and NBA talk all around as we continue. But hopefully, if you've stayed this long, you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to my channel. I'm going to put a TikTok down below. I'm going to start posting some shorts on TikTok, YouTube shorts as well. And I'm looking to just, keep having fun with this, and hopefully along the way find some people that, like talking to me and want to engage and comment and just, follow along. So hope you enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for the next one.